So welcome everyone to Faculty Fest, and I just want to acknowledge the Center for Organizational Learning and Teaching team. Maybe we can just give them a round of applause because the amount of work and planning that goes into this. And you know, this is an opportunity for a group of individuals to come together from across so many diverse areas. Can I ask, how many of you are situated here at Progress Campus? So it's like proximity, it's easy, right? How many of you came from Morningside Campus? Nice, thanks for making that trek, that 15-minute trek. What about Ashtonby Campus? Okay, see, and that's why we're going to be video recording some of our sessions so that folks from especially the other campuses and those that weren't able to come, and anyone from the School of Communications, Media and Design. Okay, so that one of the things that we're really moving towards in the Center for Organizational Learning and Teaching is creating better access for faculty, because we really appreciate and acknowledge the precious time that you took to come here for the next couple of hours and spend this with us. I know that we're going to have some really exciting presentations from faculty to talk about their own engagement in the scholarship of teaching and learning, and I very much appreciate people being willing to step up and do that. Also, at the Center for Organizational Learning and Teaching, we're here for you. So one of the things that we're going to ask you to do at the end of this session is to give us your candid feedback about how this went for you. Was this helpful? What would be more helpful? How could we better reach out to you? And what are things that you're looking for? So there's a comments area, and I'd ask you to please make sure to provide that feedback to us, because that's an area that's especially important to us. So let me ask you this. How many of you, if you think about if you just think about academic scholarship broadly, how many of you would say that you have engaged in academic scholarship? Okay, and those of you who haven't raised your hands, let's talk about what, in your opinion, what is academic scholarship? So Varsha said presenting at conferences. Would you agree? Publication of research in a peer-reviewed journal. That's often sort of our first go-to, right? Writing a book. What other forms of scholarship are there? What are some of the other avenues? Writing books, you said, yeah. Writing research reports. Developing programs, absolutely. John Otten mentioned arts-based scholarship, dub poetry. Is that a form of scholarship? Yes, it is, right? What about social media? What about a blog focused on your own reflections about teaching and learning? I want to just take a few minutes to talk about how the Center for Organizational Learning and Teaching is envisioning scholarship, and we are putting this forward tentatively. This is something that we're kind of piloting. It's a work in progress, and I'd be very interested to hear your feedback about how this fits for you. Because the truth is, we think about scholarship broadly, we've talked about what that looks like, but if we think about the scholarship of teaching and learning, that's something that we are all engaged in. We all teach, we all learn. What is it that makes it scholarship? So let's talk a little bit about that. So, oh, I just need to put it on. Okay, cut that out of the video, okay? So in our Book of Commitments and Centennial College's academic plan, scholarship is talked about from the perspective of Ernest Boyer's model. Is everyone familiar with Boyer's model? No, right? So the other thing is, I think there are often assumptions made that, well, here's this model, here's this framework, here's what it is, and perhaps we could do a better job of communicating some of the context of that. We have some really nice articles and readings about Boyer's model, one in particular that's a really nice applied one. And what we can do is send that out to this group after this session and also post it along with some of the videos that we're going to do. But in a nutshell, Ernest Boyers really revolutionized a conception of academic scholarship when he talked about it as not just the scholarship of discovery, which is often how we think about research, right? Discovering new things. but also talked about it from the perspective of integrating diverse voices. So just the act of engaging with other disciplines from an interdisciplinary perspective and getting new perspectives and new orientations, new ways of collaborating, that also constitutes scholarship. In addition, he talks about the scholarship of application. So it's not just discovering new knowledge, it's how do we actually apply it? What does it look like in practice? And that whole area of science called knowledge translation is focused on that. And then last but not least, in fact, last but foremost, I think for us as an institution, is the scholarship of teaching and learning. Who's our customer? It's our students, right? And that's what we're here to do. So the scholarship of teaching and learning is one that's absolutely of utmost importance to us. And so in our academic plan and in our book of commitments, we talk about this broad approach to scholarship and that we're not just privileging the scholarship of discovery, that all of these forms of scholarship are equally important and equally valued in our community. So what is it that makes it scholarship? And I think in a nutshell, it's whether or not we share it. So you're already engaged in learning and teaching. To take it to that next level, to take it up to the level of scholarship, it's really about avenues for sharing it with others so that others can build on it, others can critique it. And if we think about the amount of capital else. Anyway, so talking about what constitutes scholarship, it's really about how we share it. So if you think about yourself along a continuum as an academic scholar, because I'm going to put out that we are all scholars, right? We're all scholars. Some of us just haven't yet maybe fully shared it, or maybe some of us are in the beginning phase of that. Where would you put yourself along this continuum? Would you be more towards, this is new to me, this is something that I'm interested in, but I'm just starting to engage in it? Or would you put yourself at that expert level, that I'm a seasoned scholar, I've published books, I've presented at tens of thousands of conferences, etc. But wherever you put yourself, it's not just a two-dimensional continuum, is it? Like if we think about scholarship in all of its forms, there may be one avenue, maybe the scholarship of application, that you feel like I'm pretty competent in that. I'm comfortable with that. But this whole scholarship of teaching and learning thing, this is interesting. I've never actually done any research or examination of my own teaching and learning innovations and applications and shared them with others. And so if we think about it that way, we are all beginners. I mean, I don't know about you, but the thing that's kept me engaged in learning and teaching for close to 20 years is that no matter how many months or years or decades we have in this area, that we're never perfect. Like you think you've seen it all, and then something happens that you never could have imagined, whether it's with a student, with technology, with a class, with an assignment. Like there's always somewhere to go to take it to the next level. And I think that's the thing that's so exciting. So there's a lovely quote about, to the expert, there are few opportunities, and to the beginner, there are many opportunities. And so remain a beginner always. So perhaps, as a community of teachers and learners, we can all regard ourselves as beginners, regardless of that. And I say that because I think sometimes the more seasoned folks just get a stronger voice just by virtue of a sense of confidence. I've been doing this for a long time, so I have lots to say and share, and that's true. But I would also invite faculty who are newer to teaching and learning, and those who have identified areas through your reflective practice sessions, et cetera, that are new to you and that you want to develop, that we all have equally important perspectives to share. And I just embrace that and welcome it. So for some, it might be about training wheels. It might be sort of, what are some of the supports that I need in order to get going with this? And for others, you might already be there. And there's avenues for you to engage with us at Colt, regardless of where you are along any of those continuums. For those of you who are new to this, we have some offerings coming up this spring that John and Zabeda will share more about. For those of you who are seasoned at this, we want you. We want you to work with us. There are opportunities to mentor and coach and share as well. So this really relates to this notion of the beginner's mind, that wherever you are, it's the perfect place to be. That's what a yoga teacher used to say to me when I used to practice yoga. And I don't know if sometimes you can kind of get a read on someone. If you were to think of someone who's type A, would you say I'm a bit type A? Just by how I come across? Yes, it's true. So for me, it was like competitive yoga. That's the antithesis of yoga. It's the whole point is that you're in your own space. So I found it very hard to go to yoga classes because I would be sort of like that person, they look at their perfect pose, like I should be able to do that. And it was injurious. It was not helpful. So I think that notion that wherever we are is the perfect place to be, and that's of value. That's the key for this. And then the other is that, like, we know it, we have it ourselves, this knowledge, how we engage our students, how we teach, how we support others in their learning. And it's once we share it, once we put it out there in the world, that's when really the magic happens. And there's just, I think, so much capacity in this organization from that perspective. So what is our framework when we think about what is the scholarship of teaching and learning? I'd like to share with you just a snapshot of what it looks like. And as I mentioned, really invite your feedback about that. So if we think about this beautiful nest with these eggs in the nest, thinking about sort of 3 components relating to the scholarship of teaching and learning. And the first is really foundation knowledge. Like, what is it to be a teacher in a higher education context? And so things like what the Teaching and Learning in Higher Education certificate program that Colt offers is an example of that foundation knowledge. There's lots of other places to get that knowledge as well. And then if we also think about this notion of learning, what it is to be in a classroom, learning about our own standpoint, and what that is like in reference to other students' standpoint, teaching and learning across difference and diversity, and all of those kinds of processes of teaching and learning that are equally important in thinking about scholarship of teaching and learning. And then the third component, and these are really overlapping, is our own growth through application. And so what are my lessons learned as I start to apply foundation knowledge or processes of teaching and learning? And what does that look like? What are the implications of that? What are the implications for me as well as for others? And so we can think about it as sort of a Venn diagram where we have this kind of to know, to value, and to act. So this is based on, it's an integrated framework based on some research that's out there. But I think the key piece that really appreciate about this is that, like Boyer's model that I talked about earlier, that this model values multiple ways of knowing and being. And that really is a central and core value of Centennial College. And so this notion of multiple ways of knowing, like Indigenous ways of knowing and being, non-Western or non-Eurocentric perspectives as being equally important ways of knowing. And those forms of scholarship may look very different than a publication in a peer-reviewed academic journal. But that doesn't mean that they're not as important or as valued. And so I encourage us to think creatively about what scholarship means and what the scholarship of teaching and learning means. And so this notion, these themes of equity, of transformative learning, of inclusion, and internationalization are kind of core principles, foundations that we can really rest any framework that we establish on. So this whole perspective, scholarship of teaching and learning, for me personally was inspired by this book. Has anyone seen Austin Kleon's book, Show Your Work? One person. So what I love about this book, he, as you see on the cover page, also authored Steal Like an Artist. His premise is that people are quite often less interested than in the perfect, polished results of our endeavors. We're often most inclined to share our work when it's perfect or good enough to be shared. So he suggests that what the people are most interested, most intrigued, where you get most followers in social media, is about the process. How did you get there? And so thinking about it from a scholarship of teaching and learning perspective, we can talk about sharing innovative approaches to engaging students, to developing curricula, to teaching that curricula. But equally important, and maybe sometimes even more interesting, is how did you come to develop that innovative teaching and learning engagement strategy? What was your process? What was it that created a need for that in your classroom? And starting to share some of those processes in and of themselves, that's also scholarship. And in fact, that's really important scholarship, because your experiences may map onto my experiences and others' experiences, and not just let me build on your work, but also inspire me to start to document and think about what my process was too. And what are some of the areas of difference and similarity across us as a team, right? A team of teachers and learners. So that's kind of the Coles Notes version. We have some handouts that I'll distribute as well. And I just encourage you to stay tuned for this spring. So you came here today because you're interested in the scholarship of teaching and learning and in academic scholarship broadly. Colt has put together, we're calling it a spring garden, a beautiful spring garden of little plants that we'd like to share with you to nurture. So John Otten mentioned the Teaching and Learning webinar series. I stepped up to do the first one because I believe that I don't ask others to do things I'm not prepared to do, but I did say to John and Zabeda, who are the co-hosts of that series, to the whole Colt faculty team, that this is owned by faculty. And so we're looking for volunteers once a month. So we'll do 4 up to the end of June, and then a whole roster of monthly ones in the fall and winter semesters of faculty willing to share in a webinar format that can be archived. What are your teaching and learning innovations? Or what was your process? Or what's something that you want to share? You can partner up with others, and I promise you we'll make it very easy. So if you're wondering what's involved, how do I do this? What does this even look like? Then Monday's webinar at 12:30 is a chance to get a sense of what that could be. And at Colt, we're here to support you every step of the way, okay? All you have to provide us is your slide deck and yourself, and we'll even help you with the slide deck. The other is the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning Fund. Did everyone see that call for proposals that went out on the broadcast? So that's something to consider. We have one available for each school, and we'll see how this goes. And my hope is that we can expand this going forward. So this is a really nice opportunity to get a course release, as well as a budget of up to $1,500 to devote to your own more intentional exploration of teaching and learning. And then in May, June, John and Zabeda will be co-facilitating a workshop focused on sort of research skills 101, if you will. And in addition, if you're not able to register for the workshop, or you don't have time, or you're teaching in May and June, that we will also put together a suite of online resources that will be available to everybody, regardless. Because I know in the past I've heard faculty say, well, I can't go to that workshop, so can you give me your handouts? So basically what we're doing is we're making the handouts available whether you're able to register or not. So if you have other ideas, ways that you want to collaborate with us, interested in doing a webinar, we really would love to hear from you and work with you. So that was my overview of setting the context a little bit, and I'm going to hand it over to Zabeda to get us started with, I think, the most exciting part of the afternoon, which is our fabulous faculty team of presenters.